For decades, Eric Clapton and George Harrison were bound by one of the most complicated friendships in rock history. A story of love, loyalty, betrayal, and forgiveness that few truly understood. To the world, they were two legendary musicians who changed the sound of an era. But behind the music lay a tangled web of emotions, one that nearly destroyed both men. At 80, Eric Clapton has finally opened up about what really happened between him and George, the secrets he carried for years, the guilt that haunted him, and the truth about the woman who came between them, Pattie Boyd. It's a confession that sheds new light on one of rock's greatest love triangles and reveals a side of Clapton the world rarely saw. When George Harrison introduced his wife, Pattie, to Clapton, he had no idea that the friendship between the two men would soon turn into heartbreak. The quiet Beatle and the fiery guitarist shared not only stages and songs, but a love so deep and conflicted that it blurred the lines between friendship and obsession. Now, after decades of silence, Clapton is breaking his own emotional wall. In his words, George Harrison wasn't just a friend, he was a brother. And losing him left a wound that fame, fortune, and time could never heal. This is the truth Eric Clapton never told. Until now, Eric Clapton and George Harrison shared a bond that went far beyond the music. They were two of the most influential guitarists in rock history. But their connection was rooted not just in talent, but in a shared sensitivity, a love for melody, and a deep understanding of each other's creative minds. From the moment they met in the mid-1960s, a quiet friendship began to form, one that would evolve into one of the most intense, complicated, and emotionally charged relationships in rock history. Harrison, the quiet Beatle, was known for his thoughtful, introspective nature, while Clapton exuded a restless energy, a fiery intensity that defined his playing. Yet, in spite of their differences, or perhaps because of them, the two men gravitated toward each other. George admired Clapton's technical brilliance and expressive solos, while Eric found in George a kind of calm and balance that contrasted sharply with his own turbulent life. Their musical conversations flowed effortlessly, on stage, in the studio, and in private moments, creating a synergy that inspired some of the most enduring music of the era. However, this friendship was soon complicated by matters of the heart. George Harrison's wife, Pattie Boyd, caught Clapton's attention almost immediately. What started as admiration and subtle affection grew into a private obsession that Clapton struggled to conceal, even from himself. The tension was not just romantic, it was deeply emotional. Clapton has admitted that he wrestled with guilt for years, knowing that his feelings for Pattie could betray the friendship he so deeply valued. Every encounter, every note played, every moment spent together was shadowed by the delicate balance of loyalty, desire, and respect. Despite the growing tension, Clapton and Harrison continued to collaborate musically. Clapton famously played the guitar solo on While My Guitar Gently Weeps, a contribution that cemented their creative connection. The act itself, however, symbolized the duality of their relationship, public collaboration versus private turmoil. To outsiders, it was a seamless artistic achievement. To Clapton, it was a reminder of unspoken emotions, of desires that could never be fully acknowledged without risking the friendship and respect he had for George. Clapton's own personal struggles amplified the complexity of this double emotional life. Fame, drugs, and a relentless touring schedule made it difficult to maintain clarity or control. Yet through all the chaos, his friendship with Harrison remained a central anchor. It was a bond that inspired some of Clapton's most heartfelt performances, even as it tested the limits of his loyalty, patience, and conscience. By the end of the 1960s, the stage was set for decades of tension, unspoken truths, and eventual revelations. The friendship between Eric Clapton and George Harrison was no ordinary bond. It was a relationship defined by music, mutual respect, and the complicated human emotions that arise when love and loyalty collide. The story of their connection would eventually reveal truths that the world was never meant to know, until now, at Clapton's own reflection decades later. By the early 1970s, the friendship between Eric Clapton and George Harrison was at its peak, both musically and personally. They shared stages, studio sessions, and countless hours discussing music, philosophy, and life. Yet beneath the surface of this seemingly perfect connection simmered a tension that neither man could fully escape. Pattie Boyd, Pattie, George's wife, was more than just beautiful. She was intelligent, vibrant, and deeply connected to the world of music through her marriage. Clapton's admiration for her began as innocent respect, but gradually grew into something more profound. According to Eric, he struggled with feelings he could not express openly. Every time he saw Pattie, every interaction with her stirred emotions that were as exhilarating as they were tormenting. He was caught in a conflict, desire versus loyalty, love versus friendship. Eric's internal struggle eventually inspired one of rock's most iconic songs, Layla. The song's raw emotion, its ache, desperation, and longing, mirrored Clapton's heart. He poured his unspoken confession into every chord, every lyric, creating a piece that was both beautiful and haunting. At the time, few understood that behind the music lay an unrequited love for his best friend's wife, a secret that could have destroyed their relationship had it been revealed too soon. George Harrison, meanwhile, remained largely unaware of the depth of Clapton's feelings, though subtle tensions were felt over time. The bond between them was strong, but human emotions are rarely straightforward. Harrison's own insecurities, combined with Clapton's quiet obsession, created a delicate balance that could easily tip into resentment. The two men navigated this complicated dynamic with a mixture of discretion and unspoken understanding, a testament to the depth of their connection, but also a reflection of the emotional cost they both silently bore. The personal turmoil did not stay confined to private moments. Clapton's emotional intensity affected his performances and his personal life. Friends noticed a restless energy in him, a tension that he could not shake. While he maintained his public composure behind closed doors, he wrestled with guilt, frustration, and longing. Every song written, every solo played, carried a hidden weight, a reflection of emotions too complex to share openly. Yet through this turmoil, the friendship endured. Both men were bound not just by music, but by mutual respect and a shared understanding of the struggles of fame, artistry, and human emotion. The unspoken agreement was clear. Their friendship came first, even when desire and emotion threatened to interfere. It was a delicate balancing act that few could manage. Yet Clapton and Harrison navigated it with grace, humor, and an underlying loyalty that would define the rest of their lives. In the end, the love triangle was both a source of tension and inspiration. It produced music that transcended generations, while also testing the limits of one of rock's most iconic friendships. Clapton's confession decades later reveals the emotional truth behind the notes and lyrics, the longing, the restraint, and the quiet devotion that defined his relationship with George Harrison. As the 1970s progressed, Eric Clapton's feelings for Pattie Boyd intensified, but so did his awareness of the stakes. His friendship with George Harrison was not just a casual bond. It was sacred. George had introduced Clapton to his inner circle, trusted him with his music, and shared both the highs and lows of fame. Clapton knew that any misstep could shatter a relationship built over years of mutual respect. Yet the heart rarely obeys reason, and Clapton's emotions became increasingly difficult to manage. The tension was compounded by the world around them. Rock music in the 1970s was a whirlwind of fame, parties, and excess. Clapton, already struggling with personal demons, including substance abuse, found himself navigating a dangerous emotional landscape. His admiration for Pattie crossed into love, yet every time he considered confessing, he stopped. He did not want to betray George, whom he considered a brother. This internal conflict became a private burden, a secret life he carried alongside his public persona as a brilliant, charismatic guitarist. Clapton channeled much of this emotional turmoil into his music. Songs like Layla and Bell Bottom Blues are more than just hits. They are confessions, raw and unfiltered, capturing the pain, longing, and forbidden desire that he could never speak aloud. For decades, fans heard these songs and felt the emotion, but few knew the personal context behind them. In a way, Clapton's music became both his therapy and his confession, a private outlet that allowed him to navigate the moral and emotional minefield he was living through. Meanwhile, George Harrison remained largely unaware of the depth of Clapton's feelings. He trusted Clapton implicitly, and their collaborations continued to flourish. Clapton's guitar work on Harrison's songs, including While My Guitar Gently Weeps, was born of deep admiration and love for both the music and the man behind it. It was a testament to Clapton's ability to compartmentalize, to pour his heart into art while keeping his friendship intact. Yet the secrecy weighed on him heavily, shaping his choices, his relationships, and his public persona. This duality defined Clapton's life for years. Outwardly, he was the acclaimed guitarist, the rock star adored by millions. Privately, he lived in tension, guilt, and longing, fully aware that one wrong word or gesture could destroy his friendship with Harrison. It was a tightrope walk, balancing honesty, desire, and loyalty that required constant vigilance. The emotional cost was enormous, but Clapton persisted, guided by a deep respect for George and the bond they shared. By the late 1970s, the situation began to resolve quietly. Patty eventually left George and later married Clapton, a union that brought closure, but also lingering guilt and reflection. Clapton's confession decades later, at age 80, is a window into the man he was during those years, talented, conflicted, and deeply human. The double life he led, split between friendship and forbidden love, was a secret few could have imagined, and one he carried silently for decades. This period in Clapton's life demonstrates the complexity of human emotion. Love, loyalty, guilt, and desire intertwined in ways that were both destructive and inspiring. It shows that even legends of music are bound by the same emotional truths as anyone else, navigating love, friendship, and moral dilemmas in the most human of ways. Now, at 80, Eric Clapton has finally spoken openly about what it all meant, the love, the guilt, and the friendship that endured despite the chaos. For decades, Clapton carried a weight that few could understand. He had lived in a world of extraordinary success, performing for millions and creating timeless music, yet beneath the surface, he wrestled with emotions that threatened the very bond he cherished most, his friendship with George Harrison. Clapton admits that the secrecy was a form of protection, both for himself and for George. Revealing his feelings at the wrong moment could have destroyed the trust and respect between them. Instead, he chose to channel those emotions into music, crafting songs that became timeless classics while keeping the truth buried in his heart. "I loved him like a brother," Clapton has said, referring to Harrison, "and I wanted to honor that bond, even if it meant carrying my own pain in silence." In interviews and conversations now, Clapton reflects on Harrison with admiration and gratitude. He emphasizes that George never held anything against him, that their friendship survived the unspoken tension, and that the love triangle, though complicated, did not define their relationship. Harrison's understanding and compassion allowed Clapton to navigate his feelings without losing the man he considered a true friend and musical soulmate. The revelation is bittersweet. Clapton's truth shows the depth of human emotion behind the rock and roll legend. It illustrates the sacrifices he made for friendship, the restraint he exercised out of respect, and the personal turmoil he endured in private. Fans may never fully comprehend the inner life Clapton led, but the confessions at age 80 illuminate the courage it took to reconcile love, loyalty, and legacy. Clapton also reflects on the broader impact of their story, on music, on friendship, and on the way we understand human relationships. The songs born from this tension are not just expressions of unrequited love. They are artifacts of loyalty and respect. They demonstrate that true friendship can survive desire, jealousy, and emotional complexity. The bond between Clapton and Harrison was tested, but it endured, ultimately leaving a legacy of music, honesty, and emotional depth. In the end, Clapton's revelation is more than a confession. It is a testament to the resilience of human connection. Even when emotions are messy, even when hearts are conflicted, love and respect can coexist. The story of Eric Clapton and George Harrison reminds us that even the brightest stars live complicated lives, full of secrecy, longing, and moral dilemmas. As Clapton himself has said, reflecting on decades past, "I loved George. I loved him like a brother. I made mistakes. I felt guilt. But I never lost sight of what mattered most: our friendship. That was the truth I carried, and now, at last, I can share it." It is a revelation decades in the making. The truth about love, loyalty, and the extraordinary bond between two of rock's greatest icons.